Greater Mount Kenya parliamentary leaders that we intend to use in crafting or coming up with a negotiation framework with the Deputy President William Ruto. So we want to state that Kenyans are a progressive and working, democratic and peace-loving people. The citizens we represent from Central Kenya and its diaspora are an enterprising, patriotic, and working community that are sons and daughters who hustle their way to establish some of the most successful enterprises in the Republic. Our region and its diaspora is not only bestowed with these enterprising people, but is also the most productive in revenue generation to government, while also supporting millions of livelihoods across the region. We, however, note that through systematic government actions, mostly designed towards private enterprise gain, our people have been impoverished, millions of livelihoods destroyed. Many of our traders and business people have deliberately been driven into poverty through government policies coupled with unprecedented high-handedness. Our people have never felt and been this impoverished since pre-colonial Kenya. From our dairy farmers, miraa, rice, ndengu, potatoes, maize, horticulture, pyrethrum, avocado, macadamia, tea and coffee farmers, to our traders and industrialists, have all suffered immensely under the supervised hands of monopolistic cartels, an unfair business environment, and business insensitive directives from this government. Our business community has literally been wiped out of business, our individual and communal enterprise defiled by a system largely driven by contempt coupled with a strong sense of entitlement. From downtown Nyamakima's imports and export traders who want hopes of government support to grow their import businesses into cottage industries, learning from the countries they have imported them from to become later-day manufacturers, have been left to watch in dismay, sheer anguish, pain, as their lifetime savings, capital borrowed from banks, went up in flames under the guise of their imports being declared counterfeits. Today, they shed burning bitter tears of pain as banks auction their properties. Acres of newspaper advertisements of these property auctions bears witness. May we dare mention that again the very same banks auctioning them have been driven by government policy to lend at high interest rates as government grounded private enterprise from the credit market. This policy is and has been deliberate as it benefits a few. The bank owners, needless to say, at the expense of our struggling population. This is in contrast to the Kibaki regime, and I quote and repeat, is in contrast to the Kibaki's regime deliberate policy that reduced government domestic borrowing, leaving banks to hawk cheap loans at every street corner, injecting cash flow into the economy and driving economic growth. Our industrialists, traders, and business owners have their businesses rendered and shut down by state police, while others have literally been frustrated out of business by state agencies. To add insult to injury, the brute force of state police has been deployed to supervise the wanton destruction of homes and businesses painstakingly built from lifetime savings of ordinary people, majority of them from Central Kenya, shattering their lives and dreams and effectively rendering them destitute in their homeland. The lease and the accompanying pain by our people is unmatched in the history of a young nation. This has been so despite the government being in our hands, with the most powerful offices being held by men and women from our region. The need of economic recovery, because this is the agenda that we are trying to build up for negotiation. It is this sad state of affairs that necessitated the coming together of the 62 elected leaders from our region, last week seeking to re-engineer the model of engagement by our region's leaders with others as we seek to restore our nation's economy back to the trajectory that President Kibaki left it at. In our meeting last week, we discussed and resolved to open formal negotiations with Dr. William Ruto, whom majority of our constituents identify with as their candidate of choice and one whom they trust to carry the aspirations of economic recovery and growth of free enterprise, while also appreciating that the economic recovery agenda will transcend the current administration. I now invite my sister, Mheshimiwa Alice Wahome, to proceed from there.
It's a theory. We were talking last few weeks about the money from IMF. It has come to my knowledge that the first tranche of 25 billion shillings of the money from IMF has come in. Out of 25 billion, 60%, 15 billion has gone to pay contractor of one project. Tell me, when is the trickle down going to happen if we take 15 billion out of 25 billion from IMF to pay a single contractor? We are aware there was some 40 billion shillings on the annuity fund. I can't recall the actual figure since I was fired as a vice chair of the transport committee. But I left around 35 billion in the annuity fund. All of it is going to pay 3 contractors, yeah, for 3 projects. Tell me, when is trickle down going to happen? That is why I'm saying, if we get anything from this government, it's a bonus. We have given up.
Which are these 3 contractors?
These are 3 contractors, Chinese contractors, which are building the Mau Mau Road. And Mau Mau Road is a very important piece of development. And this other one, it is the one which is paying the contractor for the Lironi, the airport one. 15 billion single payment. This other one, 35 billion, 3 contractors. This government is on a scorched earth policy. Wamesema ni masaa ya kufunga kazi, yeah? Ni bei ya kufunga kazi, mtu aende nyumbani na ile amebeba. We need to be careful.
Kieleweke people criticizing us for engaging William Ruto into talks. We want to tell them, why are they concerned? They said William Ruto will not be around in 2022. Why are they concerned that we are in talks with somebody they have said will not be around? We are also asking them to go and enter into talks to the candidate of choice. If their candidate of choice is Raila Odinga, the Kieleweke people should enter into talks with Raila Odinga and come and tell the people of Mount Kenya what they have negotiated, as we are in talks with William Ruto. Those who want to enter in talks with Gideon Moi, they are free to do so. But they should not be concerned about our talks with a candidate they have already said on record that he is not going to be around in 2022. Why are they concerned?
Muridi, I want to say something. Because we keep on talking about bottoms up. And then we think,
I know most of you have really insisted and wanted to hear more about political positions and that kind of stuff. But like you have heard, we are really just only focusing at this point and in this phase on economic growth of the country, on getting us back on track. And once we are back on track, then every Kenyan will be happy. And at that point then, once we have agreed on what will be the economic blueprint, post 2022, then we would be able to determine who, what, where would we be getting what positions and who would be occupying that. So for us right now, we are saying, like we have said in the last 1 year, the conversation in this country is changing and it will have to change. So we are no longer just talking about positions, but talking about uplifting the lives of Kenyans. And that can only happen if we get it right through economics. Thank you.
I think we have been very clear, and I think if you listen to the candidate, Deputy President William Ruto, in his Citizen interview last week, he did enumerate where we came from in 2013. That was just to carry on with the good work that President Mwai Kibaki had established up to 2012-2013. We did well to carry on with that work up to 2017. Then handshake happened, and we veered off that agenda. And it is that agenda that you see we are saying, other than banning our people's merchandise in Nyamakema, those people expected that immediately after the 2017 elections, because we had promised under the Big Four agenda, a manufacturing agenda, that they had learnings from the countries we're importing goods from, we would transition them from importing into cottage industries and onward to the Naivasha Industrial Park. Are we still on that agenda? We lost track. We went to handshake and BBI and change the constitution. We now want to engage along where the trajectory we had taken. And that's why we said we want to begin from the trajectory that Mwai Kibaki left. We are not saying that the first time the government never did anything. They did well up to a certain point, then veered off the tracks. We want to come back to the tracks, push on with the agenda that we had, the trajectory that we had, that would ensure there's job creation, there's business support, there's enterprise development and free enterprise, so that we end the era of monopolies and cartels.
Thank you.
Susan, you're asking what is our bare minimum in our negotiations, yeah? Politically. Our bare minimum.
Two agendas, economic revitalization and political
interest, yes.
So, economic wise, that one is spent. You dealt with very well in your speech. Spent and
I think,
understood. Let's talk politics.
Okay, you want us to talk politics? Let me say this. One, and I understand where your question is coming from, because of what we are accustomed to. If you look at our statement and read through our statement, we have said that we want to change the matrix of how political engagements and negotiations are done in this country. So understanding us from that point, that it is not business as usual, because it is usual business to sit here as politicians and negotiate with another political leader for political positions and for politics' sake, and what will be politically expedient to the candidate and even to us as political leaders. It is that matrix of engagement that we are saying we want to change. We want to put the aspirations and the needs of the people ahead of everything else. And for those of us, if you look at our statement, we have begun by enumerating the problems that our people are living with today. Most of them stemming on undemocratic governance of the country and also the meltdown, economic meltdown. And that's why we said we want to do a two-part negotiation. One that will begin with economic revival. Once we agree on the economic revival, then we can move to the next phase, which is the political interest. Who fits in? Is it person A, person B? To push through the implementation of that economic revival agenda. Therefore, but if we begin by discussing like the others on who should take what position under what system of government, we get it wrong. And that's why we say, as the people's representatives, we carry the aspirations and the needs of the people ahead of everything else, ahead of our own political interest. I know we have been accused since 2017, some of us since 2013, that we work with the deputy president because we want that and this and that position. Those will come later once we settle on agenda number A.
Last one.
It is very dependent on who is on the chair.
Of course, it is dependent, and Moses Kuria has put it very well. I did listen to one of the presidential candidates being asked on one of your TV stations, what will be your agenda or what is your plan in your first 100 days in office? And he replied by saying in the first 100 years, and I can forgive him for that being a slip of the tongue, that your people are tired. Maybe you can ask me that question in the next interview. What is that to tell you, my friend? Is that this is a candidate who has no plan. We are therefore engaging with a candidate whom the people we represent have already identified as a candidate who has a vision, who has a plan, and who knows what he wants to do for this country. It is now us to come and fit into that equation.
Last question. In your statement, you also say that you want to take the country.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'll start with the question about, if I had it well, it's about the deputy president, who is already deputy president. I hope that was already, that was the breadth of the question. And then why not do it now?
What is the basic minimum demand that you will make in your negotiation?
Before I come to that, I'm sure you asked about why are we demanding and yet we are sitting in terms of we have positions already. And you insinuated even the person we are negotiating with is already deputy president. Then why not do it now? I think Kuria partly answered that question, but I also want to reference to you something that was referenced by our presidential candidate on Citizen TV about Mwai Kibaki, who was a vice president for a long time. But I also want to go beyond our borders. If you study the histories of countries that we actually admire, and some of the models that we are modeling our economic agenda on, a country like China, prior to 1976, there was a person called Mao Zedong, who was the equivalent of the president of China then. He was the leader of China. His secretary general of the Communist Party of China is a gentleman called Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping became president of China, a leader of China in 1978. The China we know today in terms of industrialization, the China we know today in terms of economic growth, is on the basis of the policies of Deng Xiaoping, who previously had already served in the government of China, which could only be defined by poverty and famine through the policies of Mao Zedong himself, like the Cultural Revolution and the Proletarian Revolution. And therefore, the economy of a country and the destinies of nations are actually driven by the leader on the seat. You cannot ask the people at the back seat. And therefore, the reason why we are negotiating with William Ruto is because he has a track record from his ministerial duties, from agriculture to higher education, and of course, juxtaposing the same to the answer that I already gave. In terms of our bare minimum, Muriithi, I have to say, and allow me to answer this broadly. Broadly to say that our agenda, I know we are politicians, but you are not here for politics. Our agenda number one, insofar as 2022 is concerned, number one is economy. Our number two agenda of this team is the economy. And number three agenda of this team from Mount Kenya region is the economy. Because our principle is that we would rather be led in a country that is rich than lead in a country that is poor. Let me repeat. One of our principles as this team is that we would rather be led in a country that is rich than being leaders in a country that is poor. And therefore, our bare minimum, so to say, is not the other questions that others have been asking about which position are you getting in this arithmetic. Our bare minimum is the revival of our economy. As I finish up, when you see this team here, some of us have been burning midnight oil in terms of trying to come up with a very concrete economic agenda, very detailed. And some of the areas that we are borrowing from, number one is the Marshall Plan of 1948, after the World War. We are heavily borrowing from it in terms of industrialization. Number two is the Charter Oath of Japan of the 1868. We are borrowing a lot from it. And also, we are also heavily borrowing from South Korea from 1960 and especially to 1979, where exports of South Korea grew by 40% every year compounded. And therefore, I hope I've answered you. We have nothing about politics for now. Everything is about the economy. When our people are smiling and when our economy is doing well, then politics can come later.
Thank you,
I think.
So I think this issue of joint leadership is a very good question, Ogina. But that question expired on the 9th of March, 2018. It is spent. It's a spent question. Because you know very well that the government that we elected before and the government that came after the handshake is different. As a matter of fact, the deputy president has been idle since that time. So he has a lot of unspent energy. Thank you.
Second question.
The second.
Economic.
The bare minimum. And I think my colleagues and this statement is very clear. Political.
Bare minimum.
I think it is not a priority. We have said about four things. Yeah? We've talked about jobs. We've talked about our agriculture. We talked about trade and export. And we've talked about the infrastructure, the hardware that we disrupted with the handshake. Our water, our roads, our electricity, our health, our education. Once we are dispensed with those ones, you can ask about the political issues.
So according to you, you basically say that you're now speaking about the future.
this is already spent.
Yes.
Now, the future includes somebody who is already going to be president. Huh?
Yes.
And the economic revitalization of that area that is Mount Kenya will depend on who is going to be president, the deputy, and the people that are going to help him.
I'll ask
Now,
Honorable
that
Dende
question
Nyoro.
that has been asked by my colleague Ogina moves into what you have said about the future.
First of all, you know, it is not just about what is our demand. It is also about the character of a person that you negotiate with. Even when we are doing tenders, we start with a technical proposal before a financial proposal, so that you see whether that person is technically qualified, even before you move to the next step. So for us, it was very important that the first selection criteria is about the character of the person that you negotiate with. Now, once now we are satisfied that that is a person you can go on a journey with, then you can put your demands. But if you get a madman or a rogue person, no matter how competent your demands are, you are negotiating with the wrong person. So for us, we had to do some pre-qualification and come up with the right person, so that now we can say, having identified you as a person we want to go on a journey with, now here are our demands. So I think it's very important, because even in a bank, you do not give money or a loan to just the idea or the project. You give to the person, to the manager, to how competent they are, to their experience. Is this a person with a track record of delivering on a promise? Has he supported our cause? And the Deputy President has supported not once, not twice, but thrice. Yeah? Even in 2002, he was on that journey with our current president. So he's tried and he's tested. He's a person we can now negotiate with. But if we now go and say, no, it's simply because somebody is saying, I'm going to do this, what about Akituruka? Itakuwa namna gani? That was why it was important. Let me also say about the timing. Why now? Why now? Because we've been accused of crying, complaining. We have been accused of, just criticizing. Our eyes are in the future. If we get anything from the current government, it's a bonus. Yeah? If we get for the next 15 months, if you get anything from the current government, it's okay. We will appreciate it. It's a bonus. But our eyes are firmly from now on the future, because we can't keep complaining and crying about the current. Another issue, because I know you are going to ask, that is this team qualified to negotiate? If it is about age, Honorable Kimani Gujiri is senior to some of the people in government today, in leadership. If it's about vitality of the youth, nobody is more qualified than Dende Nyoro, who is a young person. So whether it is about age, plus or minus, we are qualified. Nobody is elected by accident. We have got Beatrice Gather here, who was in government civil service for a long time, longer than most people in leadership today. If it's about being, in government, Honorable Chagu. We have got Alice Wahome, who has been, in private legal practice for a long time. And so do you want to say that the people of Mount Kenya made a mistake by electing these people, that they are not qualified or competent, to defend our interests? Thank you.
Mheshimiwa Ngirishi kutoka Kirinyaga, ya kuwa kando na Wakenya wengi kuwa watu ambao ni watu watendakazi wa bidii na watu ambao wanazingatia maendeleo yao. Sisi kama viongozi kutoka Mlima Kenya tuliweza kukutana wiki iliyopita na tukaweza kuzingatia zile shida zote zimewakumba wakaazi wa maeneo ambayo tunawakilisha bungeni kama viongozi, yakiwemo mashida ya ukulima, kazi ya ukulima kuwa haina faida kwa mkulima, sababu kuna cartels tulivyosema ambazo wamefanya biashara ya ukulima ni ya kuwasaidia wao na biashara zao peke yao. Ikaja kuwa mpaka wafanyikazi ambao walikuwa wanafanya kazi ya biashara ndogo ndogo kama wale tuliotaja kule Nyamakima waliweza kuchomewa mali yao, wakaweza kufungiwa mabiashara zao. Tumeona matendo ambayo yanazingatiwa na serikali yetu ambayo yamekuwa ni ya kuwafinyilia wananchi, hasa wananchi ambao wanatoka eneo la Mlima Kenya ambako tunatoka na area zetu za diaspora mahali watu wetu wanaishi. Tumeona ubomozi wa manyumba hasa wakati huu wa COVID kutoka Ruai, Kariobangi na hivi karibuni huko Njiru, wakati wananchi wengi wanaumia. Wengi wamefungiwa biashara zao na sio watu wa biashara ndogo ndogo peke yake, hata watu wenye wamekuwa na viwanda ambao wanatoka maeneo yetu, wengine wamekuwa na biashara kubwa, zingine polisi wametumiwa, wengine wametumia maagency ya serikali kama Kenya Revenue Authority, Asset Recovery, na wengine kugandamiza na kufungia watu biashara. Na kufuatilia kilio na hasira nyingi iliyokuwa na watu wetu, tuliweza kukutana kama viongozi wiki iliyopita kama mlivyo ripoti, na ndio tumeona leo ni muhimu tuwaite ili tuwapee hii statement kirasmi, tuambie ni kweli tulikutana viongozi karibu 62 na tukachagua kamati ambazo zitaweza kuongoza mazungumzo ya kuweza kutatua shida ambazo hasa watu wetu na nchi yetu inakumbwa nazo, tukizingatia sana matatizo ya kiuchumi na maisha ya wananchi. Kamati tuliochaguliwa, tumeunda kamati zingine ambazo zitazingatia mambo ya uchumi, mambo ya kilimo, mambo ya maisha ya wananchi wetu na jinsi watakavyoweza kujimudu kimaisha. Kufuatia mkutano wa pili leo, tumekutana kama kamati na wengine ambao wametuweza kutumia apologies ambao waweza kuweza kuungana na sisi leo, lakini baadhi yao tulikuwa nao siku ya Jumanne, na tumekubaliana ya kuwa yale mambo yote ambayo tunataka kuzingatia hasa ya kiuchumi, tutafungua mazungumzo na naibu wa rais ambaye wakazi wengi wa maeneo ambayo tunawakilisha wanaona ndiye kiongozi peke yake ambaye wanaweza kumwamini kusukuma gurudumu za kuweza kuokoa na kufufua uchumi wa nchi yetu na kuendesha serikali kwa njia ambayo ni ya kidemokrasia. Na sababu tulipewa jukumu na wale viongozi wenzetu tuanze kufungua mazungumzo. Tumesema tunataka kubadili mfumo wa mazungumzo ya uongozi na siasa wa nchi yetu. Tunataka mazungumzo yawe sio mazungumzo ya kuzungumzia vyeo na viti. Tunataka tuanzie mazungumzo na yawe yanazingatia tabu na maisha ya mwananchi ambaye tunamwakilisha. Na huo ndio mfumo tumeweza kukubaliana na wale viongozi wengine ambao tutafuata, na kufuatilia huo mfumo tumeuliza na already muelezea naibu wa rais kupitia ofisi yake ya kuwa tungetaka tuwe na kikao na yeye sasa, ili tukubaliane ule mfumo ambao tutazingatia kwa mazungumzo kati yetu kama viongozi na yeye kama kiongozi anayetafuta uongozi wa nchi yetu, ili tuhakikishe ya kuwa yale matakwa yote ya wananchi wa eneo letu ama maeneo ambayo tunawakilisha na wale wananchi tunawakilisha yanazingatiwa na serikali ambayo tunaona itaweza kushika hatamu ya uongozi wa nchi yetu kufuatia uchaguzi wa mwaka ujao. Kwa hivyo tunataka tusisitize ya kuwa mazungumzo yetu hayatakuwa yakizingatia sana na hasa ugawi wa vyeo, hata kama tutafika hapo, lakini kwanza tunataka tukubaliane mambo ya mwananchi, mambo ya biashara ya mwananchi, mambo ya maisha ya mwananchi, venye mwananchi ataweza kuwa mambo yake yamewekwa kwa meza ya uongozi. Hayo ndio tunataka tuzingatie kwanza. Tukishakubaliana hayo, tutaenda kwa sehemu ya pili ambayo tumesema sehemu ya kwanza ni agenda ya uchumi na ufufuzi wa uchumi. Sehemu ya pili ya mazungumzo yetu itakuwa sasa ni yale ya mambo ya kisiasa na venye nchi yetu itaweza kuwa kuongozwa, mambo ya governance ya nchi yetu kwa njia ya kidemokrasia, tukiwabeba wananchi wetu wote. Kwa hivyo tumekubaliana hayo, na hivi karibuni tutaweza kuwatangazia tukiwauliza wale wengine wenzetu, professionals, our religious leaders, viongozi wa biashara, wananchi wa kawaida, wale kutoka mama mboga, watu wa bodaboda, watu wa salon, wale wasanii wote, kila mtu tutakuwa na vikao za kuweza kujadiliana na watu wetu, tuhakikishe ya kuwa kila kitu na masuala ya kila mtu yamebebwa kwa meza ya kutafuta uongozi, na kuhakikisha ya kuwa tutazingatia mambo ya mwananchi kwanza, sio ya viongozi mbele. Asanteni, na tutaweza kuwajulisha tukipangilia hayo. Tumesema sababu ya COVID protocols tutakuwa na ile tunaita webinar ya mambo ya kiuchumi na hayo masuala mengine yote, na hayo yote tutakuwa tukiwajulisha tunapoendelea. Acha nimkaribishe dada yetu.
Kama wale ambao tumepewa jukumu na Wakenya na wale walichagua kutoka Mlima Kenya na wale ambao ni jamii ya Mlima Kenya wanaishi katika mahali ambapo si Mount Kenya. Tumekutana kwa sababu kuna mambo kwa kadha ambayo imekuwa ina sukuma watu wetu na ambayo watu wetu wanalia, lakini kwa vile sasa tunaona kama ambao walichaguliwa tuendelee na kuwa represent katika forums different, na pia tuwe ambao tuta negotiate kwa niaba yao, kwa sababu ya vile wameangamizwa na vile wamesukumwa na hii serikali yetu ambayo tulichagua. Lakini kwa sasa tumejitolea mhanga na tukasema kazi yetu tutaendelea kufanya bila uoga na bila kusurutishwa na yeyote, kuacha kufanya ile ambayo Wakenya walituambia tufanye. Na ya kwanza kabisa tungependa tuseme vile wamehangaishwa katika mabiashara zao na wamehangaishwa katika ukuzaji wa viwanda, tungependa Wakenya wetu wawe wanajua tunaangalia pia manufaa yao ya katika ukulima wa miraa, ukulima wa mchele, ukulima wa mpunga, ukulima wa ndengu, ukulima wa maragwe, mahindi, pyrethrum na avocado, makandamia, majani chai na kahawa na maziwa. Kuna wale ambao wamejishikia na wakaingilia na kuwa makatels ambao wanaangamiza hawa wakulima wetu na wafanyabiashara ndogo ndogo. Tungependa tuseme ya kwamba tunaangalia pia vile ni kama serikali imekuwa inabaka makazi zao na kubaka ile manufaa yao wangekuwa wanapata kutoka kwa ukulima wao na kazi zao ambao wanafanya. Kwa hivyo kama ambao wamechaguliwa na kuwa represent wana Kenya, na sana sana wale ambao ni jamii ya watu wa kutoka Mlima Kenya, tungependa tuseme kwamba tunashutumu kabisa hata ile utendakazi ambao imeingiliwa na mpaka polisi katika ukulima wao na zile kazi ambao wamefanya na maisha yao na ile jasho yao yote wametoa, lakini wameangamizwa na kubomolewa manyumba zao, wengine makazi zao zimefungwa na askari wanasimamia ambao pia tumewaajiri na wanalipwa pesa na kodi zao ndio wanalipwa na kwenda kuangamiza Wakenya. Sisi tumesema tutasimama kidete na hawa Kenya na tutaendelea na kufanya negotiation ama kuongea na wale ambao tunaona wanaweza kufanya kazi katika dispensation ambayo tunakuja na inaingia, ndio wa Kenya wa kutoka Mount Kenya wapate manufaa ambayo watakuwa wanajivunia kuwa wa Kenya. Saa hii wanajihurumia kuwa wa Kenya.
Thank you. This is a continuation of the statement to be able to put in place the strategies and to deal with the issues that have been read out by my brother here. We will need to put in place a negotiation framework, and therefore I proceed from there. As agreed amongst ourselves, the negotiations will be divided into two parts. Part 1 is the economic agenda of the 11 counties, and part 2 is the region's political interest. We also agreed to set up committees with representatives from each county to steer the discussions, which we intend to be centered around our citizens' issues and aspirations. We want to change the matrix of engagement from one of negotiating purely for political positions that benefit a few political leaders to one that is participatory, citizens-driven, begins with and anchored on the empowerment of the people and their aspirations. We want a candid engagement with the candidate, that is presidential candidate, on matters of economic recovery, and measures will take place the measures that will take place to restore our people's economic power and create jobs for our young people. Our discussion will be centered around job creation, enterprise development, business support, incorporating the transition from imports to cottage industries and onward to manufacturing. This will also largely include agricultural support for farmers, focusing on value addition, agro-processing, and guaranteed minimum return, as well as the dismantling of monopolies and cartels that have held farmers captive, actually from independence. We will also engage on the country's trade and foreign policy to kickstart negotiations for the reopening and expansion of our horticulture and mirror markets in the UK, Somalia, and other European countries. You know, this is a particular commodity that is grown in the eastern region, particularly Meru and Tharaka, and also Embu. This will subsequently be followed by a discussion on our region's political participation in the implementation of the agreed programs and intervention, as well as the overall governance of the country. With this in mind, and having been mandated by the larger team, and I mean this particular team before you, having been mandated by the larger team, we have held 2 meetings and drawn up on an engagement and negotiation framework that will incorporate economists and other professionals for our region and from our region, business and religious leaders, including the youth, Hustler Nation representatives from all different sectors of our economy, from Mama Boga, Jamawa Boda, creative industry, and artisans. The list is long. We have mandated the committees formed to proceed, and these committees are led by elected members of parliament and nominated members, and initiate programs that we shall be announcing, which will include, but not limited to, webinar country forums, limited by the COVID protocols. We shall observe COVID protocols as we engage. We will not wait for COVID to finish, but we will engage using COVID protocols for guidance. Sectoral reforms and county-specific public engagements post-COVID also lockdown period. We shall soon be inviting professionals from our region and other areas, actually countrywide, to register for the program of activities that we shall be announcing, not today, but going forward, and not very far, very soon. We have also sought an appointment with His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, to discuss and agree on our proposed framework of negotiations towards economic recovery and democratic governance of our nation as a priority for the team. We, as elected representatives of the people of this republic, commit to pursue this agenda with the dedication, focus, and energy required to the best interests of the people that elected us and we represent, and in the best interests of the whole Kenyan nation. We will keep you appraised of further developments and or announcements as we move forward. God bless you all. God bless Kenya. Thank you very much.